Hey everybody, I'm Swebb, S-W-E-B-B, Swebb. Now, my mom, when she had me as a baby, she called me Stephen Webb, but we are friends, and friends have nicknames. Everybody in this world for the last 10 years has called me Swebb. I wanted you to know that because we're friends. And so anything I say moving forward, you will take that from me as if we're friends working together in this workshop today. We're getting stuff done today. I'm pretty excited about it. It's a real big honor to be speaking with you and in this conversation today with you. I love that we get to talk about the same thing, even though we might be saying it in different literal languages. We're saying the same thing. We're moving towards a common goal of building the church. I think that's a cool thing. I'm talking to you from Florida, real close to Mickey Mouse, and I'm talking on this really small camera, and then you are hopefully going to take this, make it way better, and then multiply, the impact of your church and your teams there. That's just an amazing thing. So before we get started, maybe just think about that. Maybe give God a little thanks and gratitude, express some gratitude that you get to be a part of something so massive. Think about that. Think about the weight we get to carry, the part we get to play in building the church. That's a big deal. But it's pretty cool. What a cool invitation. So some of you might think you're small, just a volunteer. I just stand at the door and greet people, man. I just kind of make graphics, and don't despise that. Those small things all add up to make a big difference. And I don't just mean that in a cliche way. It really is important. We used to have this saying at our church that said, the thing you're a part of is bigger than the part that you play. The thing you're a part of is so much bigger than the part that you play. So don't judge the impact by your small window of this. Think about if I was doing that right now. Again, I'm looking at this very small hole. It's about an inch across in this camera, but I'm assuming there's a few people on the other side of that lens. And so it's a really big thing. And so I'm just honored to be a part of it. Thank you for listening quickly, because I speak quickly. Hopefully you're going to catch up. Somebody, if you don't speak English super well, I heard that we might do some translation here too. So that'll probably help as well. So, but bear with me on that part. And stick with me, and we'll have some fun. Also, one other kind of housekeeping item. Hey, take notes. Hopefully you're not just watching and listening, but you are engaging and participating in this. So take some notes, write some stuff down. If I say something that kind of gets you excited or inspired or maybe even a little bit mad, write it down. Think about it. If you have to kind of disconnect for a minute while you chase some thoughts, do that. That's fine. But this is a workshop. This is not me preaching something just motivational, inspirational to you. There are a lot of great preachers in this world, even at your church, who can do that. I'm not that. Today, I'm going to be like a personal trainer. We're going to exercise. We're going to work a little bit, and I might offend you a little bit. I might offend a preference. I might push you a little bit. That's okay. That's my style. But that's also what Simon asked me to do. So it should be fun. Should be fun. Also, one more thing. I'm dressed in the traditional native Floridian uniform today. Just kidding. I don't know if native Floridians hundreds of years ago wore this, but I now have flowers on me. I'm dressing up. This is dressed up for Florida right now. So I'm dressed up for you. I hope you can appreciate my church uniform today in the great state of Florida. All right. Today I want to talk to you about team health, team culture. These are buzzwords. These are things we like to talk about. I don't know if y'all talk about them as much as we do over here, but man, in the American church world, we just love to throw around words like culture. We just say things like, they have good culture. Man, I want that culture. Nobody seems to know what that is. They just say that. So before I jump into some practical stuff, can I set a few definitions for you? A couple things. Number one, I don't believe there's good culture or bad culture. There is intentional culture and accidental culture, but it's not really good or bad. Right? If you intend it to be one way and it's not, that might be a bad thing. But to an outsider, it might look like good culture. There's intentional and unintentional. There's not good and bad. So let's define what you want. That'll be for another workshop. That'll be for you to do with your leaders. But culture is not necessarily good or bad. It's intentional or unintentional. So today I want to walk through some intentional things we can do, some behaviors maybe we can do to build good team health, good team culture. This won't be an exhaustive list. It'll be a few things to kind of get you started. I do think it's pretty robust. I do think these things will help you tremendously if you adopt them, if you kind of make them your own and multiply it. But these are meant to be some starters. Again, we're workshopping. Remember, we're lifting weights. We're getting strong right now, okay? So a couple other little clarifiers. Culture is this: the experience of others based on what we believe and how we behave. Culture is the experience of others based on what we believe and how we behave. Behave. Okay? Here's how that kind of cycle works. The leaders are going to create the culture. Okay? The culture is going to then drive these behaviors. And then the behavior is going to produce results. Okay, the leaders are going to create culture, or matter of fact, discover a little bit about themselves, define what they want the culture to be. Then number two, the culture is going to drive behavior. That without those core beliefs that we want, we're going to find behaviors to exhibit those beliefs. That's what we're going to do in kind of phase two of that definition. And then three, those behaviors are going to produce the results that we want, okay? But we don't just get to say culture. We don't just get to say we're generous or we're honoring. We don't say those things. We have to behave in a certain way, shooting for a particular outcome. So this is all just my setup, just so we can kind of check the box of culture and get into how we can do some of those things. So behavior, here's a kicker. Behavior cannot thrive, though, in a culture that does not support it. Behavior cannot thrive in a culture that does not support it. And the culture reinforces behavior that reinforces culture. Culture reinforces behavior that then reinforces culture. Sounds like I'm talking in circles. I know. Just wanted to give you some of those thoughts. You can think about them. You can unpack them later. But in that vein, let's talk about the behaviors. Today, I'm going to focus more on behaviors. Here are some behaviors to build effective teams, to build teams. These are things that I've learned, that I have done, that I have seen proof in. Okay, this isn't necessarily the exact way Jesus did it. It might not be the way some of your leaders do it. This is not the way the president in the United States does it. I don't know. These are my examples. These are things that I have seen and proven. I actually have somebody in the room that's validating that this is what I've done to help make a team that now he's on. Okay, so this is what we're working with. Okay, and so I find these to be very helpful for me. I can go back and reference these things as I continue to build other teams or speak into other teams like yourself. So that's kind of the goal here. So we're going to talk about some behaviors, some things we can do to build teams, to build effective teams. Now, I also know, I was told that I'm speaking to a large volunteer audience. Maybe a lot of you aren't paid staff members, you're not senior leaders at your church. That's fine. That's totally fine. But you're not off the hook. You're still a leader. You're still building culture. You are the thing. You get to be the thing that you want created, okay? We don't just sit back and wait for the senior leader to come up with something and then hopefully it pans out. So I might be speaking above what you have thought I was gonna come at you with. You might have thought I was gonna educate you on some things, but I'm not. I'm actually gonna call you to some things, okay? So I know I'm talking to a volunteer audience, a large volunteer audience. But again, all of this I think applies to you no matter what. All of us are leaders in some context. All of us have influence with at least one other person. So if nothing else, let's go into that context that we're leading and influencing. Okay, so these are going to be, I'm going to call it 4 C's, like the letter C, 4 C's of building teams. These are my things that I do to build teams. Okay, 4 C's. Now, again, if you're not speaking English here, I don't know how that's going to translate with the 4 C's. But these words in my language right now are 4 C's of how I build teams. All right. Now, before I even do the 4 C's, I'm going to start with another C. So it's actually 5 C's, but it's 4 C's. Some of this will come up on the screen for you later. It'll make sense. But here's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for camaraderie. That's the first C that I'm aiming for. I'm looking to build camaraderie. I'm looking to build a team, build a healthy team, camaraderie. That's my product. That's the goal I'm shooting for. That's mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together. Camaraderie is a mutual trust, mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together. Trust, that's measured by like the tone of a team, right? I believe trust is the most important fundamental element of any relationship. I gotta assume that you agree with that. You might not have said it that way, but I gotta assume you agree with that. Camaraderie isn't something trust isn't something that's necessarily worked towards. I believe it's like wielded wisely. I don't know if I wholly understand the idea of earning trust, okay? And here's what I mean by that. I don't believe that you half trust somebody, just like I don't think you can be half pregnant. You trust somebody, you're pregnant. You don't trust somebody, you're not pregnant. Now, I think what people mean when they say they kind of half trust somebody or they're working towards trusting somebody, I think what they mean is the application, the position of that trust. So for example, you might not trust somebody to watch your kids or speak life into your kids, but you would trust them to not steal your wallet, okay? That's a predictive trust. I understand that they probably won't steal your wallet. You see what I'm saying? You're trusting them with a smaller item, but at the end of the day, you still have to give freely trust, okay? So I just want to set that little clarity out there too. So I do believe that you can change the level of value, the weight of the thing you trust somebody with, but trust in and of itself, there's no such thing in my opinion as half trust. Trust in and of itself cannot be halved. You either trust or you don't. And that's a huge epic element to any team. Like it said in the definition, mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together. So that second element there is time. I believe presence with each other, time with each other, is another key fundamental element of any relationship, a very big key fundamental element of influence, of leadership. So, but it doesn't always have to be proximity. I was talking to a group of people earlier and saying that you can be physically close to somebody and not be present with somebody. You know that. Remember, all of us that are on a phone and we're messing with stuff on social media or whatever, we know what it's like to be near somebody but not really be present. Or flip that. You know what it's like for your wife to be near you and she's not present, but you're always present. That's what my wife would probably say. So physical proximity isn't it only. And you can also be far apart and still be present. I think right now, as I speak into this camera now, hopefully there's this, like, we're drawn together a little bit. We are a little bit more present because I'm not just standing on a camera like on my phone. But time together, that presence together is a fundamental element that I believe is key to influence. So camaraderie, aka team health, requires time together. Here's just a little, like, kind of disclaimer of sorts. Don't be surprised if teams don't work effectively when there's high turnover of the team members, of the team leaders. So if your teams aren't working together, before you jump into like team culture, team health type of like studies, just ask, man, are we even seeing the same people on a regular basis? So some of your people that are on teams, they may not show up at church but once a week, or excuse me, once a month, or even less than that. Well, no wonder your team health isn't there. There's no camaraderie, there's no time, there's no consistency, there's no presence. So I understand that we can all do tasks together. You can bring in a perfect stranger and teach them how to open the door, but that's not going to be camaraderie. We're not really working together, like that mutual bond, that trust, that friendship that comes with time and trust, right? That's not going to happen. So don't be surprised if that doesn't work. If there's no consistency in essentially the attendance of the team, get people together. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but let me just say this. Set a bar, set an expectation that people show up. Set an expectation that if you're on this team, you're here. You're always here. Don't do the thing where it's not my serving week, I'm going to take a vacation. No, man, this is what we do. We do church. We speak life into people. We show up all the time. We're together all the time. That's what we do. And that's how you're going to build that camaraderie. So that's what I'm shooting for. Another way I do this too is with the tone, the friendship part of this definition of camaraderie. Those examples are felt more by the team than we think. That time together, that proximity, that trust, those are felt things. You don't just say them, that people feel them. You can feel camaraderie. Eager inclusion, it's this like phrase that I've said and started saying recently. Eager inclusion, I'm so eager to include somebody. I think it's this weird thing. I think it travels at light speed through a team, maybe even through space and time, and reinforces the invisible bond of trust. I really do. I think you can feel when somebody either walks in the room, you're like, man, that guy, I think he wants me here. You know what I mean? You can feel when your leader's invested in your growth without them saying that they're invested in your growth. Same with you. You can communicate that, this eager inclusion, this high expectation. You can communicate that without saying a word. And you can do that even right now as you lean in. Okay, I'm going to listen to what this guy's saying. I'm going to take some notes. Eager inclusion, excitement, expectation. That's going to build that camaraderie as well. And then once you do that, and you've got this camaraderie, people are working together. There's okay, we're flowing, we're together. It's like gravity. Now all of a sudden we got some energy. We're spinning now. Then you got to have all these other people out there like, I want to be a part of their team. This is cool. I want to go be with that group. They seem to be positive and excited and like kind of focused and doing things on purpose. They have some inside jokes I wish I knew about. That's great. And you can kind of feel and see that camaraderie. You see what I'm saying? You see how that's like this gravity now that exists and it starts to pull other people in a good, healthy way. So that's what I'm shooting for. So again, I haven't gotten to my 4 C's yet. 4 C's of building teams. But that C of camaraderie is what I'm shooting for with the following 4 C's, okay? I just want to set all that up. I know I'm going fast, but now I'm going to slow down with these 4 C's, all right? So here's how I do that. So what I've seen, this is what I've experienced. Here's what I would advocate for. Number 1, communicate. Communicate. You're like, wow, that's so brilliant. I know it seems really simple. But more importantly, maybe a timely communication. Timely communication. I think speed is maybe even more valuable than the communication itself, is the speed of communication. If you give somebody good information a day late, what's that mean? Nothing. It's completely pointless. You might as well have just told them, I hate you. I don't want you here because I'm telling you information that's irrelevant, right? So speed they kind of go together with the value of the communication. So when I say communicate, like lean in, proactively move towards a person, communicate, and make it a timely connection. I'm even the guy that's going to communicate probably more with speed, maybe even over context. I'm that guy. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. But if I have substantial relational equity with somebody, we are friends, we've been in this together, again, because I'm shooting for this camaraderie, so I know these people, right? I'm going to say things and just assume they're going to be able to connect some dots for the sake of speed. I'm getting out to them as much as I know, whenever I know it, in the spirit with which I heard it. That's what I'm going to be doing to them and with them. And sometimes I'm going to leave out some context. But again, that relational equity allows me to do that. It creates that patience, that margin, that grace that can pull that back together of some context they may be missing. So I'm going to be the guy that leans on speed of communication, not just eloquence of how I say it. I'm not going to save things up and then a week later send a really long email. Some of your teams might not be operating effectively because you only talk once a week. Some of your teams might not be effective and healthy and in sync because when you communicate, it's too official, it's too polished, it's too programmed. It's like a sermon, right? But sometimes you could just send somebody a text and say, hey, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget to get the camera. Just say that. Just say it. When it comes to mind and it's important, trust that relational equity that you have and that you're building towards and get that communication out there. Another thing about communication is you need to be responsive. Like one of my superpowers, I know you're not supposed to talk about yourself in a bold way like this on a talk like this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I think my superpower is I'm the most responsive person in the world. That's my goal. If somebody texts me, I'm gonna text them back. Now, I understand that I have a life. I don't sleep with my phone. I leave it in the kitchen while I go to bed. I'm not that guy that is always on his phone. But as best I can, I'm gonna give you a thumbs up. Got it, I saw your text, I'll get with you tomorrow. Because when you don't respond, you're also responding. Your silence says a lot. So I feel like a big gap in communication among teams is there's very little response. And when there is, it's pretty slow and pretty incomplete. So when somebody sends you a text or an email and you don't have time to go into a big description or a big discussion about it, got it, I'll be on it. So again, we're talking to volunteers. So if there's leaders above you sending you information, asking you to do things, and I've told your leaders before, by the way, in another conversation, that they should be asking you big things, putting a lot of weight on you. So by the way, that's just a little disclaimer. If that's coming at you one day, this is where it came from. But if they're doing that, they're putting a lot of weight on you because they believe in you. So the least you could do is respond quickly with, got it, I'll work on it, thanks. We'll follow up tomorrow with some details, but be responsive because not responding or a delayed response is still a response. It just says the thing you don't want it to say. And then when you communicate, you're communicating trust. I'm trusting you with this information. I'm trusting you with my emotion and how I'm giving you this communication. I'm trusting you're going to understand the context. And if you don't, I trust you're going to ask me about it. So when you communicate, trust like flows with that. They kind of go together. And then trust, the funny thing about how it works, it flips, or it spins. It kind of creates its own energy this way. When you communicate trust, then trust builds up more lines and opens up more lines of communication. You see how that works? You've probably seen this before in a marriage, probably with your kids. You've seen this kind of thing before. So communication, the first big C, I think we all know this to an extent, but hopefully I gave you some handles right there to think about and carry with you. Communication, especially a timely communication, timely connection, be the first C to building good, healthy teams. The second one I would say is candor. Candor. C-A-N-D-O-R. It's not a word a lot of people use a whole lot. And then in church world, sometimes we use a little too much without the right context. But candor, which I think is mutually dependent on trust. They kind of go together. Candor, I've heard it used more so in the wrong definition and the wrong context. Is some people would use it synonymous with negative feedback. Hey, can I be candid with you? That shirt makes you look ugly, Webb. That's what people would call candor. And that might be a part of candor. That's not what we're talking about. Let me read you the definition, at least as I've seen it and researched it. It says it's unreserved, honest, or a sincere expression. Unreserved and honest. But I don't know why unreserved and honest always has to be negative. You can be unreserved and honest about positive things. Hey, bro, you look good today. Why can't you say that? That'd be fantastic. Matter of fact, if all of you just went into your next church meeting, or even into other meetings, maybe at workplace or whatever, and the first thing you said was an unreserved, honest, sincere expression of positivity, I bet your day would change, not to mention everybody else's. You might get a raise at your job. You never know. So feel free to be unreserved and honest. Use a good, sincere expression in a positive tone too. It doesn't have to be negative. To me, that's candor, is that unreserved, honest feedback. If you want a good, healthy team, don't save candor for negativity, because they know as soon as you say, can I be candid? They're putting up like a shield. They're like, oh, here he comes. Here she comes. Here's what's going to happen. Also, candor is not a license to unload. Okay. So for example, again, I've seen candor used negatively, where people will write down all the things you've done wrong, the things that frustrate them, the things you need to work on and get better in your role at church, in your business or whatever. And then once a week, once a month, they have a one-on-one meeting with you or something. And then everything they saved up, they dump it on you, and they call that candor. Now, if it's unreserved and if it's honest, it should also be real time. So while somebody's doing something incorrectly, hey, by the way, we don't do that like that. Hey, let me help you do that better. Go ahead and give it to them right there in the moment, so they can retrain their muscles, retrain their minds, have new patterns and have new habits. If you've got to save it up, that's not candor. That's not candor. You've weaponized the wrong thing. Good luck, because now, good luck with that person, with leading that person or being led by that person, because now you've helped them build a shield where they don't want to come out. They don't want to talk to you anymore. They don't know how to receive correction from you anymore, because you unload things that have been saved up and they gather weight and frustration. Give it to them in real time, unreserved and honest, a sincere expression. Do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It can be positive. It doesn't have to be mean. By the way, if you do have critical feedback to give, and you do it more often in smaller doses, then you build up a tolerance for it, right? It becomes almost a welcome thing, right? Like, think about the workout. If somebody puts on a lot of weight on a bar to do, or if you have to do a lot of push-ups, or if somebody expects you to run a marathon tomorrow, your body will physically, literally break down. But if we can just chunk it into small steps, let's run a mile today, let's run a mile tomorrow. Let's do a couple of weights today, a couple of push-ups today, a couple more tomorrow, right? You've seen this in other areas of your life. Compounding interest in finances, just a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow and a little bit tomorrow. You could retire with $1 million. You've seen this principle play out. Just apply that to candor. Just apply it to candor. Throw it out there, real time, sincere, honest. Do that, unreserved. Candor requires some flexibility and regularity for it to actually be candor. So just, again, keep that in the flow. But also that honesty, that candor, without any sort of equity, it's not going to be received fully. It's not going to be the healthiest way. So if you don't know me and I don't know you, I've got to be real careful and real smart on what sort of candid feedback I give you. I'm going to give you a ton of positive feedback if you're a stranger. I still might correct you if I need to, based on our leadership, our relationship context. If I'm your supervisor in a church position, but you're still a new volunteer, the authority I have as a pastor will have to be the relational equity. I understand that. And then I can give you some hard feedback or some correction. But just know that there's got to be some sort of equity there. And the more equity you have, then the harder feedback you can give. Because there's that trust, right? We've already worked halfway towards camaraderie. We're good. But candor is most welcome and most useful when relational equity exists first. It's most welcome. Welcome is a good word. It's even welcome at all, but it's most welcome and useful when relational equity is invested first. All right, the third C. Remember, we're doing 4 of these, but the third one is context. Context, which is like insight more than just info, right? It's one thing to give somebody information, but like, I want to know the insights, and I want to know the stuff between the lines. I want to know the before the sentence starts. I want to know after the period. I want to know all the context around this. So for me, I've seen great success in building teams this way because I'm the oversharer. I give my teams more information than they want, more than they deserve, more than they're probably allowed to have sometimes. I'm the oversharer. Now, I do not work for any sort of secret organization. So any secrets I have aren't really going to do a lot of damage. I might have some good secret information about certain things at Elevation Church, but nothing negative, but also something not relevant to everybody in the team anyway. My point is, a lot of us are keeping secrets from our teams that shouldn't even be secrets. We're holding things back that could provide a lot of great clarity, that could fuel your teams to do a lot more. And again, I know I'm talking to volunteers. That doesn't matter. This is you too. You get to be the thing you want to create, the thing that we want to be good and healthy. So we're holding back a lot of stuff that would move us forward as a team because we're like, I don't know if that's my place. I don't know if they're allowed to. The boss didn't say that they were allowed to do that. Your boss does not have the time to write down 400 names of people that are allowed to hear something. So just kind of get some boldness, use a little bit of wisdom and common sense, and share a little bit more than the baseline information in an email. Go ahead and give people some context. That color commentary, it's so much more valuable than just baseline facts. Tell us a little bit of a story. Now, I ramble a little bit. I use a lot of words, right? But I talk really fast, so I get them out usually in a pretty short amount of time. Control that. You know the rules of the room. Read the room, right? But again, it's guaranteed. I was going to say probably, but I think it's guaranteed that every one of your teams right now is still missing at least another 10% of commentary. There's 10% more context you can give. So I wrote this down this way. While negative tone and frustration should be guarded, yeah, let's don't just like go off on people, sure. But honest commentary provides invaluable insight into how a decision was reached or is still in the process of being reached. Feel free to go ahead and say, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's what I know now. I'll let you know when we're done. Feel free to even do that. Bring people along in the journey. I did a talk earlier about how Jesus did that. He would bring people along in the miracles, right? He didn't just mail them. He said, all right, let's do this together. So because we all know that emotion and personalities play heavily into decisions. So I want to see those emotions in real time. I want to hear the stories in real time. Your team does too. So extreme ownership for a decision is key. Extreme ownership is key, and they're only going to really buy into that. And you only are going to have that extreme ownership if you've got some context, some details, some color commentary. Now listen, here's how I'm able to do that. Here's how I'm the overshare and able to do that is I lead with a high level of trust. I give out a ton of trust. I trust my friends and people with a lot of stuff. I'm just good with it. God will take care of it. I hope they won't crash my car. I'm assuming they won't kill my kids. I think it's going to be fine. I do high trust, but I also lead with high accountability. And I think a lot of people lead with high trust and no accountability, and it's no wonder they get burned. Some people lead with no trust, but they micromanage like crazy on the accountability side, and nobody wants to get anything done. So for me, I lead with high trust. I'll give you a ton of space and margin to do what you said you wanted to do, but I will hold you accountable to what you said you wanted to do. And so with that, I'm able to then give out all of this context. You wanted it, you got it, but let's work it together. You're going to be a grown-up. I'm going to hold you to that. Some of you want to be leaders until your leader gives you something to lead, and all of a sudden you might not want it. Yeah, don't be that guy. Go ahead and raise your own bar. Raise your level of discipline there. So here's a little quote for you. I think this came from Andy Stanley. That's who I'm applying this to or attributing this to. The more comfortable a leader is at holding his team accountable, the less likely he'll be required to do so. So the more you hold your team accountable, the less likely you'll actually have to do that because it'll just be part of it. That's that high trust, high accountability that enables you to give out that context. It's like this frame that can hold all that context in. It's great. So I trust heavily in the relationship I have, and I also trust in the relationship I'm moving towards. Your relationships are dynamic. They're not static. I'm a friend with somebody. I'm working with somebody, but that person, we're right here. But I know we're trying to like widen that and increase that relationship. So I trust in where we are, but I trust in where we're going. And then that enables me even more margin to put in more context, to overshare that information, to bring them along in the story. I trust that this person knows I'm working towards a deeper understanding together, even if I don't spell out certain aspects of the story. I might give them a lot of context, but I might accidentally leave something out or leave something out on purpose. But because I'm including them, I trust that they're okay with that and they're going to figure that stuff out and we can do this together. I've seen this work across miles. I used to be in charge at Elevation. I was in charge of starting what is now 11 campuses outside the city of Charlotte. But at one time, I oversaw 8 at one time. All of those were in another city that I did not live in. From Toronto, Canada, all the way down to the beach in Florida. And I lived in the middle. So I've even done everything I'm just telling you through the lens. I would fly in and fly out maybe once a month or so. I've done this over space and time. I've seen it work. This stuff will help you provide the context, because the further you are from your people, from your leaders, you're going to need a lot of that trust and accountability so that you can fuel people up for the longer gaps between the time you get to see and lead with them. All right, moving on. Last thing, celebration. That's the 4th C, celebration. Celebration. That's the positive reinforcement, the public and private positive reinforcement. Here's what I believe about my teams, the teams that I've led before. And I believe this even about my kids, but no one should celebrate or believe in my team more than I do. No one should. Maybe their parents? I don't know, maybe. Their spouse? I don't know, maybe. I think I should believe in them more. Like, that's my goal. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I'm able to do that, but my goal is like no one should believe in my team more than me as their leader. And again, volunteers. You can say the same thing about the person sitting next to you, standing next to you, okay? This isn't an up and down conversation. This is an all around conversation. Nobody should believe in my team more than I do. Nobody should celebrate my team more than I do. And here's why I think that. I firmly believe people can be celebrated, positively celebrated into change faster and longer lasting than they can be criticized into change. You want somebody to get better at something, to change, to improve? Well, then celebrate them. Be positive about how you do. Encourage them into a better future. Don't critique everything they do. There is time to correct. There is time to break down paradigms and rebuild new ones. There are times to break bad patterns and bad habits. Absolutely. Pain is just part of what we do. You have to break down your muscles to get stronger. I realize that's how it works. I just think that should be a little bit less of the norm. I think people do 90% critique, 10% celebration. What happens if you flip it? What if you could be 90% celebratory and only 10% critical? Try it. Figure it out. I just think feedback and hard conversations, those kind of things are an aspect of life, but they should be the exception, not necessarily the norm. Make it the exception. I feel like the more of these hard conversations that you need to have, they start to indicate the failure of the relationship building between a leader and their people. If you have to do this a lot, at some point it stops being the team's fault. It starts becoming your fault. At some point, you can't blame your kids for being a certain way. You got to start looking in the mirror and be like, oh man, I guess I could get better. Same thing here. Some of you don't like the way your leaders might be leading, but you might be really hard to lead. So look in the mirror there. So let's, you can create candor going up. Hey, listen, boss, friend, leader, I didn't do that well. I'm going to get better at it. You can provide that candid real-time feedback as well. So celebration's a big one. I'm going to read these again. Communicate, a timely connection. Be responsive, be quick. Candor, hey, come on, real time, unreserved, honest, sincere feedback, positive feedback, not always negative. Context, feel free to fill out the story a little bit, add some color commentary. And then celebration, make sure you're positively reinforcing and positively moving people forward. Brian Houston says this, he said it's not good grammar, but he says you be good culture. You don't get good culture, you be good culture. That's my Brian Houston impression. Hopefully it was good. But you be good culture. That's what you do. So again, I know I'm not talking to just staff leaders or senior pastors. I'm talking to teams. And if you want your team to be healthier, and hopefully you do, that's a mandate, then you need to be the culture that you want to see. You don't go get the culture you want. You get the culture that you build. You don't get the culture that you want. You get the culture that you build. So go build what you want. So, hey, thanks for hanging out today and having this conversation. I'd love to know how it helps you. Maybe we can connect on Instagram or something. You'll find more about that, find out more about that later, I think, and a link or something like that. But again, thank you for hanging with me today. Let me pray for you, and then we'll be done. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the work you've called us to, who we get to do this with. I love that we're in a real-time conversation with the creative universe, but also on different sides of the planet. That is incredible. It is insane. It is amazing. It's a heavy weight to carry, but we know that you graced us for it. You've provided us all that we need to do what you've called us to do in that. And so I pray that you continue to bless these people watching this, give them wisdom, give them energy, give them encouragement, bless them back with finances, with favor in their businesses, with favor among their teams, and with wisdom, increase their vision and help them to know that they're doing better than they think they are. Fuel them to go further and faster. We believe the best is ahead. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.